Good morning, everybody in Facebook land. So, for those that are newly tuning in, I do this about almost every day, every other day. I've been doing this for the last 4 years, give or take 3 to 4 years, because I introduced a new protocol called the Jilly Juice, and you may have heard of it, may not have heard of it. It's gotten mixed reviews. In the beginning, it was very, very controversial because the mainstream and the alternative mainstream, holistic allopathic, have been taught to fear salt and, of course, to fear symptoms and to mitigate symptoms any way possible. So, when I first rolled out the Jilly Juice, you'll be dealing with a type of herxine that they would call in the holistic world, but you'll be dealing with your predispositions as well as the salt as the energizing force. And then salt back with the right constituents, which is in the recipe of the Jilly Juice. So I've been rolling this out, giving people explanations, my perspective on the different things that are going on throughout the day. I've also been widening my awareness to not only just sticking with the body, which that was the original focus with Julie Juice, was the body, but then it obviously the mind and the spirit are connected, and so then I started graduating past the body, though still giving details on how the Jilly Juice interacts with the body, but also then how it affects the mind and then the spirit, which is basically your biochemistry, which is what you leave behind when you pass away. And then, of course, also introducing that we don't have to pass away or die, but it's been taught to us, it's been pre programmed ever since before we're born that you are to be on this earth for a certain amount of time and then you pass away. So now we're seeing that there's definitely another way to look at life, that life isn't about dying someday. Um, and so, that's been kind of interesting. So I've been on like every single day, every other day, give or take, just depends on what's going on. And, you know, I went to a wedding, as you can see on my Facebook. Um, and that was interesting. That was beautiful. And I got to dress up a little bit, give myself a little bit of a hiatus from all of this doom and gloom. Like even doom and gloom need a break. But then you go into a fantasy world where nothing is wrong, everything is beautiful and wonderful. And that's nice too, but you can't live in that world forever because reality does hit you squarely in the solar plexus when you least expect it. So the ability to be able to balance fantasy and reality is like, it does take an art, and it's hard to mix the two because you want to bring reality into the fantasy and no one wants to hear it. You want to bring fantasy into reality, everyone's like, what the fuck, Jillian? So it's like you have to almost be a very good actor in both worlds. I'm not saying so much a good actor, but you have to know how to play your part. You have to know your place. And that's one of the hardest things about J Juice is knowing your place in this world, even when people don't really understand you. But you have to play a certain part. And you still love the people in all the different worlds that you live in, but there are certain realities that no one wants to face that it's going to eventually affect them. But you really can't say too much because it'll just like go right over their heads or they look at you weird. So that was an interesting world that I was at in the last, couple of days. So, and so yes, also too, when I came back from the wedding, uh, yeah, my dog felt a new uptick. My dog felt another evolution. Okay. I think everyone in my family has felt another evolution. So I'm just letting you guys know, those that have been part of the vaccine phase 3 trials that are in your area, yeah, they have a new strain of whatever's in those vaccines and those phase 3 trials because they said on the news, my local news, that one person, there could have been many, but at least one guy said that he participated in that phase 3 trials with Pfizer or somebody else down in Columbus and came back up here, and he's sitting around here mutating a new virus. So my dog, myself, and everybody in my immediate world has felt some kind of upgrade to our system. So mark my words, with all of the lack of social distancing, lack of paying attention that viruses do exist. Okay, nobody should ever deny a virus. They do exist. It's the intention and the purpose and how these viruses, these really aggressive viruses, come about. Yeah, it could happen organically, okay, but like I said, nothing is organic in an intentional universe such as what we live in. We live in an intentional universe. When you have an intention to make a phone, you have an intention to put together different elements and minerals and other things to create a phone. So when you have a world that is intentional, like building a house, creating a phone, cars, whatever, then everything else around you is intentional. Even viruses, when they get mixed with different biodiversity, protein docking, bonding through chemistry, yeah, you get some kind of then reaction. And then that's really upgrading the microbiome. But like anything, you have to be prepared for the upgrade. And so what is obviously going on is not many people are prepared for multitudes of upgrades to their microbiome. It's not like, you're getting a vaccine with a very like low heat type of antibody inside the vaccine. You're now getting not only a microbiome, your environment, the people that you are around, and the vaccines. You're getting now a very hot vaccine, a very hot environment. And when you have a hot vaccine in a hot environment and you have really immunocompromised people, guess what? You have people then having certain events in their life. And that is what you'd say is a symptom. And then when you have and hold aggressive constituents of microbiomes in your body that you're not releasing, guess what? That will cause a chronic symptom. And so the whole thing with the Jilly Juice is to not only get rid of the chronic symptoms, like say, okay, we know you have an aggressive microbiome in your body. Well, your body needs to adapt to it, and then you need to release that excess data that the body doesn't need. Well, what happens is people hold on to that excess data. They don't release it, and then that's why they have cancer disease and chronic illness, PTSD, autoimmunity, you name it. And so to bring it to the original post, or the original theme of this transmission today, is like drug tests, hair follicle tests. Well, your hair is like a tree trunk, like tree rings, okay? It is a reflection of your microbiome. Now, somebody asked me if they could pass a drug test with a hair follicle test with the J juice by soaking their hair in it. Because here's the thing, if you do the J juice, okay, and you are trying to also do a hair follicle test, well, obviously everything that's in your body is going to be coming to surface. It's going to be coming out your nose, so you will be communicable. And yes, you could potentially test positive on a drug test relative to what microbiomes that you've ever experienced on a very long-term basis is still stuck in your body. So someone said that when they were doing the J juice way back in the beginning, and they had a history of psychedelics in their background, they were feeling the experience of those psychedelics as they were purging it out of their body. And so they were revisiting some of the past, okay? So when she or he was asking, well, if you soak the hair in the J juice, do you think it could potentially come up a negative or whatever, something favorable on a hair follicle test? And I said I couldn't guarantee it. I said anything is possible, but I can never guarantee anything. Okay? But if you understand that your hair is a reflection of your internal microbiome, this is your DNA, right? This is your DNA. So when you have old hair that grows, those are old microbiomes. So when you're shedding, that's old microbiomes that is being released, okay? And then when you're growing new hair, it's a reflection of your internal universe. So if the hair that you have right now is being soaked in the J juice, potentially, I don't even know what they look for. I guess they look for all different types of exposures to marijuana, maybe the most recent exposure. I guess they can like count the tree rings and count the chemical composition in each strata of the hair follicle. No different than when you cut down a tree or get strata from the earth by doing core samples and then looking at the different mineral contents of each layer. And they say, oh yeah, there was a volcano that happened this year. There was a mud flood that happened this year, and no different than with hair follicle tests. I mean, a follicle is the end of your hair that is still attached to your body. So let me look at something. Hair follicle. It's part of the skin, which grows hair. Okay. So right before you go for a hair follicle test, a hair follicle is part of the skin which grows hair by packing old cells together. Attached inside the top of the follicle are sebaceous glands, which are tiny sebum-producing glands in almost all skin except on the palms, limbs, soles of the feet. Okay, so that is like a mirror. That is going to be a mirror of your microbiome. So if you did soak your head for, I don't know how long you would, but if you did a whole bunch of J juice, or you made a whole bunch of J juice and you soaked your head in it, or I don't know how you do it, but like really like putting your whole head, like all of it, like even underneath, and soaking your head in J juice, it could potentially have you release anything that could give you away at the time. But see, and that's the thing, I can't guarantee. I don't know, but the theory makes sense. But you'd really have to make sure your whole head, wherever your hair is, it would have to be soaked in J juice, like major. And that's one thing, no different than any kind of drug test that you do. Okay, when you do a drug test, yeah, I mean, the thing with a drug test is you can purge out the newest stuff because it would be on the surface. It wouldn't be embedded. When you have old drugs from many years back, let's say like, who knows what, heroin, whatever you did, like maybe in your 20s, okay, and you maybe you did it so heavily that there's still residual in there, but it's been cordoned off by your immune system. Well, with the J juice, you're energizing your immune system, and then what it's going to do is going to bring up old past traumas. And yes, past major drug addiction is going to be a trauma that's going to come to surface. But let's say you really didn't do that much of it. Okay, like I did stupid stuff way back when I was in my 20s. I never felt any kind of psychedelic experience through my healing and purging process. But some people will if they really abused it. So if you did something recently, as far as you get to take some kind of pee test, well, I would suggest, wait 30 days, or I don't even suggest drinking a bunch of water, because I don't want anyone drowning themselves just to pass a pee test. But I mean, maybe the J juice can help purge out the newest titers that are in your body. That's would be a good guess for me, that water falling and doing that before. I don't know. If you've never done J juice and you want to go pass a drug test, I wouldn't suggest doing waterfalls in the morning before your drug test, because you might be shitting. But I mean, but yes, the J juice does cleanse and detox and rebuild. So it not only detoxes your body, it also rebuilds at the micro level because of the nutrition in the cabbage and kale. But you wouldn't only be detoxing from whatever illicit drug you were doing, you would also be healing everything else in your body. And if you have predispositions because you're on these drugs to begin with. Nobody does drugs without having some kind of predisposition. So if you're trying to clean from drugs, you will have to heal simultaneously. And I couldn't tell you what would come up during that time that you have an intention to detox, but really now also too, you'll be healing as well. So, I mean, but as far as the hair follicle test, I don't see any issue with you soaking your hair and your scalp in the J juice, but I couldn't guarantee how far, when they pull out that hair follicle, how deep it goes. So you better be soaking your head for a while so it can go pretty deep right before your test. So I don't know. I mean, just look up hair follicle and how far hair follicles go down, then you can figure out how much. Maybe get some really, strong J juice, because that's been fermented for a while and really, really salty. So it energizes the stuff out of your system and then rebuilds and detoxes and purges the autophagy. Okay. But anyway, so you're seeing an uptick of right now, and let me just switch to another thing as far as all the natural disasters, which are not really natural, but the fires. Also, the hurricanes. Okay, so again, they're saying evacuate, evacuate. They have several hurricanes out there in on the horizon, out there in the middle of, I don't know, the Indian, the Atlantic, whatever. And they are going to be coming our way. They've also said that this new hurricane Cecile or Sally or Hurricane Sally, oh Jesus, is going to be slowing down as it approaches the Gulf Coast, which means that's a lot of rain that's going to be deluging that whole coastline. Okay, so you're kind of seeing now a terraforming. Get the hell out of Louisiana. Get the hell out of the Gulf Coast, guys. I've already seen maps of a projected where they want basically to flood out Florida, flood out different parts of the coast, and then terraform parts of California. Because eventually, what's the main objective in California as far as the fires? Get everybody out of there, do their whole rebuilding of the high speed rails so it connects the different human habitation zones, and then biodiversity will come back. I mean, yes, plants and trees and animals and things like that do come back, but it has to go through this intentional evolution for them to then reconfigure and redirect human populations and, yeah, the depopulation agenda as well. So, you know, if there's any indicator, look at the fires. Okay, yeah, they're gonna blame it on global warming and how, oh my gosh, the humans did it. But yeah, humans have done it, but it wasn't your neighbor who has a high flow toilet. It was those that are trying to terraform the world based upon a vision of the future. And that is the Georgia Guidestones. If you haven't studied the Georgia Guidestones, I would study it in its in-depth, because even though it sounds nice, it's very beautiful. Guiding reproduction, carefully, allowing biodiversity to be balanced with nature, and don't be a cancer on this earth, and all this stuff. It sounds great, but to get there, you know, it would mean that many, many people would have to be reprogrammed, and not many people are ready to deprogram and reprogram. If anything, they are fighting against change. And that's really what change management, I remember that was one of the biggest subject matters back in 2006, was organizational development and leadership. And then one of the main categories was change management. How do you implement change in an organization as well as in a continent of people? Okay? And some people will fight against change. They will fight it so hard they will fight to the death to it. And so then how do you then change hearts and minds? Well, sometimes you have to force the issue. Not everybody can handle the issue being forced upon them. And that means also reprogramming your kids. It means reprogramming the adults, using the kids to reprogram the adults. So it's really about, every man for himself in a lot of ways. Do the best you can to survive in these changes. Make sure you protect not only the things that you need to survive, but protect your own body, mind, and spirit from those that are resisting the change, because they will inevitably take you down with them. Okay? And so you have to know what it is that you can control, what you can't control, and set up things in place so that way, should something be out of your control, you're not left completely shocked or unprepared for any situation. Okay? Look at your whole sphere of influence. Look at who's in your life. Look at indicators. Some people aren't buying into all this, and they're going to be a liability at some point, especially with things that they can't see, like viruses, and then also some of these planned natural disasters. Some people are just only focusing on HR 666, which is that House of Representatives bill that is about contact tracing and really just the draconian measures of getting into your network and controlling your family and friends and how they raise the kids and whatever. But also look at Senate 4315. Okay, I see a lot of the conspiracy people out there, which I respect their intentions and their passion, but they're focusing too much on what Del Bigtree and RFK Jr. and Ron Paul are focusing on. they're allowing those people to redirect them away from, there's two bills. You know, you need to put focus on the Senate 4315 bill. Okay, I did post something about mind control and Kathy O'Brien and transformation of America and the world. And yeah, mind control is huge. I wouldn't say that Trump is trying to make you think differently. No, if anything, he's adding to it. But there's always a spin on the truth. But I want people to understand that there is definitely a spell that was cast upon the land, and now the spell is actually being in the process of being broken. Okay? I broke the spell of what I was raised with. We're seeing spells being broken as far as the uptick of the natural disasters, and then the hurricanes, and then now this political upheaval, and then you're seeing that, yeah, the Antifa, BLM, and the Patriots are purposely being pitted against each other because they want some kind of a war. They want division. They want you guys to hate each other. And I'm trying my best to be patient with those that are still heavily under a spell. But it's difficult because, you know, the people that are heavily under the spell are also, you know, a liability to their own world, or to, you know, to your world in some ways. And so now it's me having to work harder and you having to work harder to make sure you survive despite the inability to comprehend the reality of the people around you. And that's difficult. That does take, either you walk away from situations or you up your J juice so you can handle and make the right decisions. And when you have to fight, you got to fight, and you fight fairly, but you choose your battles, and you know, do the best you can to find peace while you're healing, because you don't want to fight too many battles. But there are some battles that are worth fighting, but pick the ones that you can, because you don't have the strength to be on the forefront fighting the 50 battles that are out there, whether it's the vaccines, chemtrails, 5G, whatever. It doesn't even matter anything out there as far as the activist community, because you don't have control over the 5G, you have no control over the chemtrails, you have no control over even the vaccines, you have no control over the therapeutics, you have no control over the politics. The only thing you have control over is how you're going to survive despite other people going to be out of control around you. And that is one of the biggest takeaways of Jilly Juice, is knowing what you can and cannot control, and focusing your energy on making sure that you lay a good enough groundwork to prepare yourself for whatever might come down the pipeline. And that's things that I've been facing. You know, when life takes a left turn, who am I going to be and what do I have in place? Okay? And that's very important for all of you that are lone wolves in this, on the JJus, knowing and seeing what's going on, and people around you are just fucking oblivious, or they don't believe it, or they think that they can win it because somebody like Trump is their savior. And I'm just like, oh lordy, you know. So the biggest takeaways is recognizing what you can and cannot control. Okay, and then laying the groundwork for yourself to be prepared for whatever comes down the pipeline. Listen to indicators. When you're in Louisiana and you're on the Gulf Coast and they're telling you another fucking hurricane, I would find a way to liquidate everything you have and get the hell out of the Gulf Coast, go move somewhere else. Oh, but I don't want to move. I don't want the government to make me move. Well, then perish along with everyone else around you trying to ride out a storm that you can't control. And there's going to be not just that one, there's going to be many more on the horizon. They're telling you, you know, the fires and the floods and the earthquakes, you think, you know, these fires are bad. Just wait. It's going to get even worse. And they're telling you, okay? So if you're not paying attention, then you almost can't even, you know, blame anyone but yourself, okay? You know, and I don't want to shout too loud, but I don't want to shout too soft. I got to balance out my shouting. I don't really have too much of an investment that everybody gets my information, but I know those that get it are going to take heed. There's a few people out there that are on the fence that kind of see indicators, that kind of see like, okay, they've met me in person, so they read the internet, and they're like, oh my gosh, it sounds crazy on the internet, but they've met me in person, and they're, you know, watching my information, they're like, okay, maybe she might have some ounce of sense or credibility, because they're definitely, you know, they know something, people know something's weird's going on. They just can't put their finger on it. Like I couldn't put my finger on it for many, many years until finally I connected all the dots. But some of you don't have that capacity yet to connect all the dots because you're barely even connecting 2 dots, much less connecting like 100 dots. Okay? So, you know, listen to your gut. Your gut knows something is wrong, And, you look at what's around you, what's important. It's yourself, your child, and then, your husband or wife, they have their own mind, so you really can't protect them. But yourself, your child, and then your animal. Okay? Those are probably the biggest priorities, most biggest. Those are the biggest priorities. Thanks, Emily. Those are the biggest priorities that I think anyone, if they're going to figure out what they're going to focus on and how they're going to take part in this and protect themselves, is don't worry about all the crap out there on the street, because you have no control over that. Don't get off the protest. Don't even protest. Okay, that's a war zone you don't belong in. But protecting yourself, because if you don't protect yourself, how can you protect your child or your dog? And then protect your child, and then protect your dog. If those are the three things. Your husband or your wife, they have their own mind. But you have the power. You have the power to figure out how to protect yourself in the storm of so much different belief systems, and you still can't control what goes on around you. So you have to be able to lay the groundwork, because there's still laws and rules that you have to abide by. There's still things in place. There's still an infrastructure that you can still rely on relatively well, okay? But you're seeing in some areas that they can't rely on the infrastructure. Like in Louisiana, people are trying to rebuild and trying to help each other out with giving them food and staying where they're. But another freaking storm's gonna come through and lay them flat out again. Get the hell out of freaking Louisiana. Get the hell out of there. Stop rebuilding in the same place that keep getting decimated. Stop rebuilding houses in the areas of, like, in the mountains in California. Oh, but people are, hey, you can't control that they're terraforming. You can't control that America2050.org, which is now RPA.org, is telling you we're reconfiguring, we're rebuilding. Brought to you by the Rockefeller Foundation, who's also rebuilding your body, mind, and spirit through the vaccines, through the therapeutics, through all the prescription drugs, through the holistic remedies, through all the diets and the procedures. They're telling you right there, we are basically the architects of all of this. Rockefeller, Rothschilds, not only in America, but they're in Europe. They're behind high gates and armies behind them, the Vatican. You can't fight those wars, but you can adapt to it. Okay? Believe me, if they wanted you dead, you'd be dead. So you have some kind of control over your survival through this adaptation process. Though, yes, 7 billion to 500 million doesn't sound very good. And if you're going from 7 billion to 500 million, billions and billions of people are going to perish. And you're seeing that. I mean, most likely it's going to be some parts of India, Asia, Africa, Europe, okay? But you can be ones to survive. You can be one of the 500 million that will keep, infrastructure going, to keep building, to show that you're productive, to keep the new world in a balanced fashion. But you got to be balanced within your body, mind, and spirit to offer something out there. And the only way that you can prove your offering, that you can be a productive member in the new world, is if you stay fucking alive. Because if you don't stay alive and you're perishing with cancer, disease, and chronic illness, that already tells the system that you can't handle new environments. You don't have the strength to handle all this next coming up, because it's coming quick. Whether it's the FEMA camps for the kids who are exposed to COVID, because they're saying now kids are now the biggest spreaders of COVID, and I couldn't disagree, because every single time I was around a kid, there was always goes getting sick. Not anymore, but not that I want any child to be separated from their parents. But yeah, they're using science, real factual science, as a weapon against you, because the way they perceive and the perceptions around symptoms. They look at it as a bad death thing. No, it actually is an evolution, but you have to have it backed by the right chemistry. And so, yes, so you really can't beat the science out there, okay, and them justifying draconian measures to protect you against people who are evolving, when you think that pain and symptoms are a bad thing. Okay, that's the psychological operations that we're faced with for those that are still buying into the allopathic holistic. So they're going to say, hey, if you don't like pain, and you don't like symptoms, you don't like mucus and all that shit, and your kid is basically dripping with pain, mucus, and whatever, well, that kid's a liability. We're taking him out of the house. I'll put him in a quarantine camp. I mean, so if you still buy into that shit, you don't really have any articulated way to articulate how the immune system works and what mucus is, and what's in the mucus. It's all the excess antibodies your body's releasing. And yeah, it'll make you communicable, but the less the less imbalanced you are, the less communicable you are. But now they're saying, oh yeah, you could be asymptomatic and still be a spreader. Well, shit. I mean, we all have influence in our environment. Okay? To demonize anyone that is an influential person in their environment is like saying, well, you then shouldn't exist. Because no matter what, you walk into any microbiome and you have, a more evolution, more data. You have your charismatic. Have you ever seen a person that comes into a room and they just basically light up the whole room? They're charismatic, they're amazing. You're like, wow, you're drawn to them. That's like a person that is evolved or is evolving. And then if he has that stronger charisma, stronger data, stronger viruses, then the whole room has to adapt to that person. Okay? And so there's a lot of people out there that are charismatic, they're powerful, that are influential. And you're saying basically they are the super spreaders? Well, then you can't win with that kind of mentality. Okay? So it's like, so now you just got to get off the fucking battlefield, stay home and heal, really listen, social distance, don't put yourself in a position like I was in a position where, yeah, I might get, contacted by a contact tracer from being at that wedding. Because you seen all over my Facebook, I was part of a wedding. I had great pictures. I looked great. But we were all in an enclosed room, and I'm waiting for somebody to go get a COVID test and then test positive. And guess what? All of our names are on the guest book. Everyone's seen us all over Facebook. The freaking palace knows, which is the place that we went to. Or yeah, and the other places know that we were all hanging out together. So yeah, I can see that in the future if somebody actually went and got tested for the COVID and they came up positive, and they're giving up everybody. Oh yeah, this guy was here, this guy was here. Oh yep, there you go, yep. And yeah, so I could see a contact tracer taking somebody's COVID-19 test and look at their Facebook and then they're seeing all of us where we are, and they'll find us. And guess what I'll do? If they say, hey, we wanted a COVID test, well, I'll quarantine. Give me a fucking ankle brace. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not gonna test for it, but I'll quarantine for 14 days. Oh, and your husband too. Fine. My husband will stay home from work for 14 fucking days. We'll take a hit financially, whatever. And then whoever gave up their COVID-19 test is going to be the one to blame for everyone being quarantined, losing money, kids potentially taken away based upon the household. If everyone, yeah, I mean, that's going to be a shitstorm if anyone or gets tested and tests positive. And that's what all of you are faced with if you are going to be doing events. So just, you know what, at this point, you can't fight against what's going on. If you want no masks and you want social distancing, fine. If you don't want masks and you don't want social distancing and you want to go out there and hang out and have them lift the measures, then when there's an uptick, because somebody is a candidate for a vaccine trial and then they mutate that virus and then people are dying because they cannot handle that new strain, guess what? They're going to blame all of you that didn't social distance, that didn't mask, that didn't, do what didn't quarantine themselves, and then the draconian reactions are going to be that much more aggressive. So you're set up to fail no matter what. So I would say this: get off the battlefield, stop being, because they already have your actions figured out. I have a mask, but it has holes in it. It's mesh. I'll play the game, but I'm not going to fucking not breathe because you want me to fucking wear a mask because you're afraid of influences in your environment. So there's ways in which you can strategically play the game without compromising your body, mind, and spirit. We're in a new world now, guys. You got to face reality. Okay, that the wedding that I went to was the last Fantasyland, and and then people know this. People they know my Facebook. I've put things out there publicly. If you get tested and you give up your friends and family to contact tracing, then that kid that's in that whole family, kids, adults, whatever, FEMA camps, they already have it all over freaking the news that DeWine has FEMA camps for kids, and we do, and that if you don't have a household that's able to quarantine safely vulnerable people in the household, protecting them, then yeah, you'll be going to a state facility because you don't have the means to quarantine appropriately. That's the fucking reality. Oh, but no, we don't want to face reality because their government wouldn't do that to us. Well, look what's going on. Our government shut down an economy of whatever perception of percentage of death rate. That's what happened. Okay? we can't have alcohol served after 10. That's what's going on. So your government says you can't, your government won't do this, your government can't do this. They're doing it. Wake up, hello. They're fucking doing it. So now it's up to you to get your body, mind, and spirit all calibrated so when things come your way, you know how to make the right decisions without freaking out. You can actually think on a clear, but it takes years to get to where I'm at because of the fact that I've been on this for 4 fucking years and still dealt with so much bullshit coming my way. But the juice gave me the strength to handle the bullshit that came my way, whether it's Dr. Phil, whether it's all my fucking trolls or the government. But the juice gave me the strength to deal with whatever came my way. But that back then I was asking for it. I put myself out there on Facebook, on Dr. Phil, on certain, interviews, the government. But those of you, you don't have to put yourself out there. You don't have the strength to fight the battles that you're not going to be able to win, but you have the strength to fight the battles at home within you. Okay? And you really should be fighting your personal battles, not battles that you cannot win out there against things that you can't even see or even know why the hell you're out there. Okay? So, if anything, Jay just will give you the strength to fight your own battles so that way when things come down the pipeline, whether it's through vaccines, natural disasters, political unrest, infrastructure, whatever, you'll be able to handle it. And you'll know that the J juice, no matter what, will give you, it'll help, like the J juice will help modify your system to release any excess and then help you adapt to any different microbiome. Let's say you say, oh, the water is contaminated. Well, contaminated with what? The J juice, you take the water, whatever tap water, okay? Okay, let's just pretend it's just tap water and you say, oh, it's been contaminated. Well, you add the salt, you add the water, which is the water, you add the cabbage and kale all cut up, or if you don't have access to cabbage and kale, then find some other cruciferous vegetable in the family. Broccoli, whatever, okay? And you blend it all up and then you leave it out. If hopefully you still have heat in the middle of winter, you can ferment that. Okay, and you'll get to all of the nutrients in that vegetable, the salt and the nutrients and the lactobacillus, which is the lactic acid, which will neutralize anything pathogenic. Oh yeah, there's too much fluoride in the water. It's a fucking mineral, big deal. You use the tap water, you do it with the J juice, with the cabbage and the kale and the water. It's just a mineral. The salt will energize any excess minerals out of your body. Because I'm telling you, you are holding probably a lot of minerals in your body. And that's why people are like, oh, well, I don't want to drink the tap water because of fluoride, too many minerals or too much minerals in the air or whatever. And yeah, you're not really releasing anything because you're stagnated. You have a big ass belly, you're stagnated. So yeah, I can see why someone would be upset about having minerals in their area, too many minerals. Oh, I gotta stay away from Teflon, gotta stay away from aluminum foil, gotta stay away from all this, this copper or whatever, right? And so they're worried about heavy metals because they're not releasing the excess. Oh, but they're doing these heavy metal detoxes using heavy fucking metals. Do you realize that people that are using like aluminum silicate, which is basically like borax, or diatomaceous earth, which is which is a different type of mineral, but they're using some of these detoxes that are basically aluminum silicate. When you look at your detoxes for heavy metals, it's another heavy metal. Okay, so the J juice, the salt, and the energy in the salt and the water, and then the cabbage and the kale or whatever broken down to pre-digested state will get rid of any excess heavy metals and also recalibrate and then redistribute all the different stuff. So, and then Emily goes, I've been through so much shit this year beyond this COVID crap. I can tell you that I would not have been able to survive and thrive without the J juice. On it since March 2019. Very, very awesome, Emily. Very, very awesome. Yeah, I mean, you may not have my mental clarity, as far as being able to make the connections with all the different worlds that I've belonged to, and I've belonged to a lot of different worlds, right? But whatever is thrown at you personally, you'll be able to survive it and thrive in it in some way, on some level. Because I'm telling you, the amount of crap that I dealt with the last 4 years rolling J juice out and doing it, I probably wouldn't be, nobody that's not on J juice would be able to handle the amount of, some people that are in that would be able to handle it. Some people in the flat earth world that are not doing J juice, of course. They got so much flack from the trolls, people threatening them, people doing this, doing all this BS to them. They had to bow out because they didn't have what it takes. They didn't understand the law. They didn't understand how to utilize their government resources to protect them from the idiots. Okay? And so they just basically backed out because they didn't have what it took to understand how their infrastructure worked. They didn't take time to understand how the laws worked, how the justice system worked, how, the FBI worked, how anything worked. So they backed out. They stopped being a flat earther. They took themselves off of the scene. Well, I faced all the demons. I faced the FBI. I went to the FBI office, gave them my phone before I went to the office. I knew there was a camera watching me, but I gave them my phone. I know they're trying to get into my phone because they were taking pictures of themselves, and they're like, "Hey," when I left the office, they're like, "Hey, can you delete the pictures that we?" Because we accidentally hit some buttons. Yeah, bullshit. I had it password protected all the time. My husband has a password, but I have a password protected all the time because I don't see a reason for having my phone open to everybody all the time, right? In case I lose it. And so they couldn't, if they wanted to, they could have got into it. But if they had it longer and they could bypass all the different, things. But it was just a very superficial interview that I went on with them. But I faced every single question the FBI gave to me. Why would someone, because the reason why I went there is because someone, was making death threats. And so one I made a report to the FBI, and then they finally got back to me. Like, I made a report like in November of like 2018, and then they got 2017, November 2017? No, 2018, and then 2019. No, was it 20? No. It was a couple years ago, but anyways, but it was March, it was the spring, I think maybe it was 2018, March of 2018 was when I finally got a reply back from them. They actually sent me an email. They called me and they sent me an email. And then I arranged a time to go meet with them. And I brought my book and I brought my phone and my wallet and whatever. And I walked it's a very nondescript office. And then I walked into the office, gave them my phone because I don't want any phones in there. I'm like, and I could have been taken away that day and whatever. But no, they just want to know, why would you get death threats? They probably did a bunch of research on me, so they've seen everything on the internet. They probably read all the articles that BuzzFeed and Newsweek and Daily Mail did on me. And so they're just like, hey, what's the deal? I'm like, dude, all I have is, and I showed them this book. It's just cabbage, water, and salt. That's all it is. There's nothing in here that is like subversive. There's nothing in here that's anti-government. It just says, hey, I question a lot of the methods. And salt is not bad. It's not 2018, thank you. Salt is not bad. Let me see. I have people saying stuff on here. Okay, cool. Thank you, Krista. And salt's not bad, and you need probiotics, and Herxing is just basically the body trying to regulate and making the comparison with Herxing in the holistic world to then the healing symptoms on the J juice and the aging process, and circumventing the immune system via injections, me basically questioning the vaccines. And so I faced everything. They're like, well, you shouldn't be giving medical advice. I don't give any medical advice. I never said I was a doctor. There is nowhere on here that says I'm a doctor. Nowhere. All I'm doing is questioning how the system is reacting to cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and maybe it's a bad reaction. Maybe the antibodies are killing people, And so, so I was kind of like I was kind of frustrated, and I was like, I remember one time I just was like, oh my God, and I put my head on the desk going I was frustrated, and I know they saw my frustration because I'm dealing with idiots who are like, well, yeah, well, you stick your neck out. You shouldn't be sticking your neck out. And so they're playing the good cop, bad cop. It was a lady who was really drilling me, and a guy was like, oh, yeah, cabbage. Oh, cabbage, not that horrible. I mean, it was so straight out of a textbook or watching, Hill Street Blues or something. But whatever. But I will face the demons. And so I still have connections with the FBI. If I need to, if anyone sends me anything really, really aggressive, and I've sent the FBI people's emails and their responses to me based upon what they get off the internet. And I'll be more than willing to give up anything to the FBI because I have nothing freaking hide. I got my juice tested by a food lab. It's all probiotic. Nothing's antibiotic. So I'm following all the rules when it comes to what it is that you promote. And if you are promoting something that's antibiotic, hell yeah, the FDA as well as everybody and their mother are going to be up your ass. But you also can't be promoting cures because cures is basically dealing with antibiotics. And so the FTC was correct. Chili juice is not a cure. You can't promote it as a cure because it's not a cure. There are no cures in the chili juice. You have to face your fucking pain in evolution. And if you're not ready to face your fucking pain in evolution, then you go turn to the antibiotics where you immunize yourself. Systematically, antibiotics immunize you, okay? The antibodies in the vaccines immunize you. That's the whole point of immunizations. It's to deaden you so you don't feel anything. And then guess why you die? You're systematically immunizing each system until it hits your vital organs and then you're dead. And so I was in this esoteric group where someone just showed a picture of an old lady, a really old lady with gray hair and wrinkly face. And they're like, oh yeah, death is so beautiful and da 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 da. And I'm like, no, death is not beautiful. Death and decay in body, mind, and spirit is not fucking beautiful at all. That's a brainwashing propaganda brought to you by Rockefeller and Rothschild himself. And they're just like, oh my God, you need to heal yourself. You have demons. I'm bullshit. The reason why I know death isn't beautiful and dying isn't beautiful and aging isn't beautiful is because I fucking healed and brought my vitality back. I'm able to mix into a microbiome, smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol, and then guess what? I'm fine, and then I can go and release any excess microbiome from that night, and I will go revert back to where I was before prior to me drinking alcohol because my body, my liver and my body is that on point that it's able to handle different microbiomes without having a major symptomatic attack or having a hangover. You know, when people get drunk, they get hangovers. You know why? Because their body now is trying to live from all of that antibiotics because you're causing imbalances. But I can have a few drinks and still be able to no hangover and be able to function the next day, though I didn't sleep very well the night before. So I needed to sleep yesterday, but I'm able to function and be relatively okay. I'm still recalibrating from that day, but I'm still coherent. Now, I haven't done any jelly juice since I went to that wedding. So I know that if I do jelly juice and I release the excess, but I'm not really prepared. I'm kind of like liking this real chill that I'm at. I'm in a real chill moment. Though you probably can't tell because I'm talking. But I'm feeling really chill. And so yeah, you know, but that's the thing with the J juice is that you're able to move in between microbiomes and adapt to them very, very easily without having a major upset of homeostasis. And that's the whole point of the J juice is that you're able to handle the new environments that are purposely thrown at you and you won't fucking die from them. Okay? You won't fucking die from them. And so that's the issue is that people out there that are getting microbiomes thrown at them or they're entering into microbiomes like a Trump rally or like any rally and they're not social distancing obviously. They're in an enclosed room and then they're not wearing a mask, right? And so they will be exposed to a new microbiome that their body can't handle and some people will have major issues. So, because the body's trying to evolve, but they don't have what it takes to evolve. And so the body steals from Peter and Pay and Paul. What is stealing Peter from Pay and Paul? That's when the vital organs are going to be the most important things. And so it's going to steal resources from different systems. But if there isn't enough resources in your different systems to keep the vital organs going, then the body's going to try to go through its reparations. And then those resources are not being carried through because there isn't any enough, and then the vital organs shut down. Okay, so the fact that that lady on Dr. Phil was able to make it to Dr. Phil, I probably saved her life because the fact that she was able to survive her predispositions, because the J juice does give you all the minerals, the nutrients, the probiotics, the water, the electrolytes, all of that. And you'll be able to see through another day through your evolution process. Because yes, anyone that comes into J juice has a whole host of predispositions they're going to have to face at some point. So either you anesthetize yourself with all of the pills, powder, supplements, and procedures and taking organs out and detoxes, or you fucking face it with the right chemistry, and then guess what? You won't see that pain anymore, and you will be off to another evolution. Because it does happen systematically. And then Emily's like, I've never once had a conversation with a person that is 80 plus who thinks the aging is beautiful. They all say it sucks and it isn't for the weak. I used to go to the old age home all the time. They all say it. Yeah. Oh yeah, I believe it. Let me tell you, I did not have a lot of strength um in the beginning of, well, with the J juice. I didn't have a lot of strength when I was going through my PMDD prior to J juice. I would basically shut down for like a week or two, like a week, or then maybe two, depending on what's going on. So, and then when my body finally gave life back to me, I was able to handle then, okay, pulling myself out of the hole I put myself in, whether it was calling in sick or missing a family event, or like, whoa, you didn't come, you said you're supposed to come and you didn't come. Well, I was feeling like shit, and no one's like, oh, you're just lazy, you're just this, you're this, that. And so, yeah, so when you're aging, it means that all of your systems are shutting down and you're trying to survive, but you don't have what it takes. Okay? And so I can see why people commit suicide, because they don't have what it takes to handle the stress in their environment, because they haven't trained themselves or given themselves the right chemistry to handle the different things that come at them. Okay? So when I was doing the J juice during all this last 4 years of the controversy, of all the bullshit, to where I'm finally able to work with my local law enforcement, it took a lot. I mean, it was difficult, but I was able to handle it. Okay? Because I had the J juice, and now even more so, I'm able to now make the connections and realize where I have control. So J juice really does give you guys the strength to deal with things that come at you. Okay, but you have to choose your battles. Don't spread yourself so thin. You can't control the chemtrails, you can't control the 5G, you can't control the protests that go outside your home. Okay, you cannot control all the political crap, but you can control how you relate to your environment and what you do on a daily basis. Okay, and bucking the system at this point right now is not going to do you very well at all, especially with new law enforcement coming into place. Right now you're seeing that the old law enforcement are being pushed out. Good officers are being pushed out. Okay, which means that those of you that are anti-police are going to be targets. They're going to trigger more of the cultures that have been victimized by certain policemen, not all of them. And so we're seeing now a new breed of law enforcement coming in, and they're going to remind me of the orcs in the Lord of the Rings. It's going to be a new police force with not only, I'm sure, mercenaries at some point when everybody freaking goes crazy after the elections, but we're going to see now even local law enforcement, the good officers being pushed out, and now we're going to bring in officers that will not be trained as well. They'll be trained in a different way. They'll be looking for anyone that is going to buck the system, and there's going to be no tolerance, zero tolerance. You're already seeing it with Back the Blue. Zero tolerance. I mean, Trump's saying life in prison for anyone that shoots or does something to a police. Okay, fine. Wait till that police officer really hurts somebody or does something or upholds something that is detrimental to body, mind, and spirit, and people want to go to war. So you got to understand what's going on here. Just get off the battlefield. This is a war that you cannot win. The war inside you can win, but you cannot fight the war out there. You cannot, because you will not win. The architects have already figured out everything. So now you have to be strategic and rise above it all. The more you resist, the more it'll persist, and resistance is futile. Okay? Remember when you try to get out of your cuffs or out of some kind of like zippy tie thing and it becomes tighter, the more you resist, the more it becomes tighter? Yeah. So understand that's the same concept. All right, I'm going to go do my thing, but I really want you guys to understand the power that you have within. But you can't change other people and you can't change a system that you don't control. But you can change how you relate to it, you can change how you adapt to it, and you can still live, because dying is not going to help you. Dying for your belief system is not going to help you, okay? Dying for your religion is not going to help you. Dying for your country, no. Death is final. It's done. Live for your country. Live for your religion. Live for your belief system. Live for Jilly Juice. Live for Earth. But don't die for nothing. That's the point of J Juice. Death is not something that you want attached to something that you believe in. Live for your belief system. Live for your religion. Live for your culture. Live for America. Live for whatever. Live for Earth. Live for you. Live for your family. Live for your kids, your dog. Live for it all. Live for the new world. Hugs to you. Bye.